Dude. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I don't like that they're smiling because we're going to start with the NFC East. I feel like starting with the NFC East is like a double-edged sword for me. It's it's great for you, but it's a double-edged sword for me because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, great, the Eagles lost. On the other hand, I'm absolutely devastated. I mean, talk about devastation. So, first things first, welcome back. The NFC East in the wild card absolutely imploded. And on itself, I dude, I feel like the Cowboys were more like sudden, it was just like, I felt like had this bubble and all of a sudden just one game it all just kind of caved in on itself. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, right? It's Murphy's law with that game. When it comes to the Eagles, I feel like it was more like we saw it coming and it was very much like, oh, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. Oh, it's not stopping. There's no air coming up in this balloon. It's still deflating. There's no air in this thing. I do want to start with the Cowboys. Might as well just get it out of the way, right? Ruin my mood for the whole podcast, right? At the hands of the Green Bay Packers, the Cowboys were handed a embarrassing loss, 48-32. And again, everything that could go wrong did go wrong in this game. When we talked about last week the predictions for this game, I said I thought the only thing or the only reason we would lose this game was because of Mike McCarthy. And I mean, I got like part of that, right? Part of that was Mike McCarthy, but then the other hand of it was also unexpectedly Dan Quinn. And then on the other hand of it was Dak and CD and the whole team in general. I think that the most disappointing thing about this loss is the guys who carried our team the entire year. I would say after the Niners game, after we got blown out by the Niners. After the Niners game, the guys who carried us the entire way failed us. Dak and CD failed this offense, and that's who carries this offense. They kind of put patches and Band-Aids in places that need those patches and Band-Aids, and they failed us there. And Mike McCarthy, I don't even know where to start with that one. When it comes to the running and the run game, what did I tell you last week? Hey, it's not we're going to run the ball so we can pass. It's we're going to pass the ball so we can run. And he did exactly that. He ran the ball so we could pass, except it didn't work. That's kind of the issue that I thought was going to happen, and it did. He kind of reverted to this weird, I'm going to run the ball first. I'm not going to let Dak sling it. And when he did, again, CD and Dak were not on the same page. And when it comes to Dan Quinn, disappointing. We had 6 DBs on the field for all but 10 defensive snaps while getting killed by Aaron Jones and the run. I don't know what the thinking is. There's no halftime adjustment. You and I were texting it, during the game, and you said, well, if you guys just score coming out of half, it's 28-14 and you're right back in it. And we go for the field goal, right? And it's just disappointing, dude. And it's so heartbreaking, right? I would say this was devastation. I, for a decade now, can remember vividly Cowboys seasons, playoff losses vividly, very vividly. So for a decade, I remember this stuff. 2014 was the Dez catch, no catch against the Packers. Then no playoffs in 2016, playoffs in 2017 against the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers hands us another devastating loss. And then we faced the Rams a couple years later, another loss. Decimated loss. And then we faced you guys 2 years in a row, and it's just embarrassing devastation. And this is just no exception. I mean, the differences between all those other teams is this team was supposed to win. The Packers are not supposed to win this game, and they did. And that's what's disappointing for me about this game. Don't just smile, please. I feel like you're soaking it in a little bit too much.
I said that we would go into halftime of this game like, oh, what's going on with the Cowboys? This game is close. What's happening? And then you guys would come out and turn it on.
Right.
Going into the fourth quarter, Dak had like 190 yards. So I don't want to hear about the 400 yards passing. I don't want to hear about the 39 first downs. It was all garbage that got put up in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
when a team looks really bad, everything looks really bad. The defense looked bad. The offense looked bad.
Yeah.
Dak looked bad. I think the underlining
Yeah.
tone to this is Dan Quinn and the fact that his defense doesn't do well against the Shanahan type offenses. If you look at your losses this year to the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Packers, those are all the Shanahan disciple offenses. And when I say that stuff, I'm
Hmm.
talking Mike Shanahan. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's our head coach, but that's where it all started. Um, Dak with two terrible interceptions really widened. I mean, one was a really good play. The other one, Savage pulls off a route and takes it to the house. Um, but I wonder because when I was watching it, I think I sent you a Snapchat after the first pick, and I was like, "Here we go. This is the
Yeah.
Cowboys. This is what they do in the playoffs." And I feel like you cannot avoid that as a player, also. And
Hmm.
I'm looking at this team and I'm just wondering to myself, like, are they going to fight for it? Like, if they come out of
Yeah.
halftime, if they score, like, Dak has already had his meltdown. He's probably going to play pretty good at this point. But then you come out of halftime, you go for that field goal, and I'm like, nah, it's a wrap. And then what was
Yeah.
honestly surprising is the Packers just kept putting it on. They ran that leak play that Kyle's made famous, where Musgrave was wide open,
Yeah.
on the tight end leak out play, and um, the thing about the Packers offense and why they're dangerous is they don't have a CeeDee Lamb. They just have a bunch of guys that have each gone for 100 yards the past couple of weeks. A different
Yeah.
person. Aaron Jones was running like a wild man. There was a lot to that. I can't say that I'm all too surprised that the Cowboys imploded because I feel like I've watched that for a couple of years now. Obviously, I didn't expect it to happen to the Packers, but it does make me
Yeah.
wonder. It does make me wonder how the Cowboys this offseason reload and come back when you're bringing back your head coach that's been reported. You're
Yeah.
going to have to sign Dak to an extension because his cap hit is $59.8 million this year. So you have to sign him to an extension just to lower that cap hit. So you're going to retool. I think you can upgrade off of Pollard. I think you can upgrade at your third wide receiver spot. But
Yeah.
besides that, I don't know what you guys do in this offseason to feel better about next year after losing this game. Because to me, this is like do we blow this whole thing up? Do we tear it all down? And I wonder if you have a legacy of an owner that knows he's in the twilight of his ownership and he doesn't want to tear it down and he's just going to
Yeah.
retool and keep going for it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's 20 franchises in the NFL that would sell their soul to win 12 games a year and have home playoff games. But when you're talking about a
Right.
legacy franchise like the Dallas Cowboys, getting bounced in the first round at home just isn't nearly good enough.
And that's what I want to talk about with every single one of these teams that lost in the wild card is where they just lightly, not super heavy. We will talk heavily in the offseason about where do you go from here for most of all the teams. And I do want to talk about where do you go from here for these losses for these wild card teams. And starting off with the Cowboys, like you said, Mike McCarthy already being reported coming back. You're basing it off of regular season success, and it's really heartbreaking and it's really disappointing at this point. And I don't really know what to do. The regular season success is super cool, but over these 6-7 weeks during this podcast, I've told you, even when we're doing the contenders versus pretender stuff, it's really hard to believe in a team that can't win big games. And it just kind of translated over to the offseason, or excuse me, the playoffs. But like you said, I just didn't expect to happen against the Packers. Maybe in the divisional, but I wasn't expecting a Super Bowl, but I wasn't expecting to lose against the Packers. Dan Quinn is potentially out the door. It is being reported that if he doesn't get a head coaching job somewhere, he will come back. Dan Quinn is coached great. I think it's one game, in my opinion. I have a hard time rooting against Dan Quinn for the one game. I do just think that's what's really disappointing is it wasn't expected from Dan Quinn. Mike McCarthy, sure. Dan Quinn, not so much, not with this defense. I think what we're really missing is like a big bruiser in our linebacker spot. We're missing that. Leighton Vander Esch is being missed right now, and we drafted a linebacker in the third round, and he ended up getting injured all year, and he didn't play, and he was supposed to fill in pretty big gaps this year, and that didn't happen. We do have a lot of free agents as well. So we have Tony Pollard, who played on the franchise tag, Stephon Gilmore. We have Dorrance Armstrong, who's a rotation edge rusher. Tyron Smith, starting left tackle. Tyler Biotis, who is our starting center. Jaron Kearse, who at this point I think can go. Jordan Lewis, who is a starting slot corner. Dante Fowler, who kind of came on really well at the end of the season. Jonathan Hankins, who's our run stuffer. He was hurt at the end of the season. And then CJ Goodwin, who's just our basically special teams guy. So we have a lot of big, really important pieces, right? And then on top of that, money's going to be tight due to extensions / deals for Dak, CD, and Micah all coming up really, really soon. So it's really hard to kind of see where this team goes from here. We have the 24th pick in the draft, which has been really nice to us. We've drafted guys like Des Bryant, Calvin Hill, and then Tyler Smith, but it hasn't translated to playoff wins and Super Bowl appearances. So I don't really know where we go from here. There's a lot to do and not a lot to say. We're not going to go pick up a big free agent. We're going to focus on ourselves. We might get like cream of the crop of like third tier guys, but we're not going to go after anyone big this offseason. That's where I kind of stand with that.
You don't think you can make a run at Mike Evans?
I don't think we will. We're tied to everybody, dude. And the thing is, when you're tied to everyone, it never happens, right?
True.
I follow
Celtics
a couple of I follow a couple of Cowboys pages on Instagram, Laws Nation and Defy Talks Cowboys, and they're kind of like in the know with a lot of rumors and what's going on in the mill and talks, and it always pops up. We're in trade talks, or we're in the trade talks for this, or we're in contracts talks with anybody, bro, anyone and everyone, right? Most recently, Dalvin Cook, right? Where does he go? He goes to the Ravens, and he's being activated off the practice squad now, and he's going to play. So it doesn't happen for us. We don't go after it. We make an evaluation according to Jerry Jones, and we like our guys. That's the same stuff you hear every day from that goddamn radio show he doesn't know how to shut up about, like he's the goddamn coach. We hear it every time. It's the same thing. That's kind of the issue.
Jerry Jones's mindset on the Cowboys is just like a certain family members of ours mindset on the Cowboys. It's just everything they got is the greatest. And, I got to tell you, one thing that I have, I'm going to put a baby red flag on. And for those of you that have been listening for a while, I like to red flag things. Your boy on the defensive side that's going to get the biggest defensive contract in the history of the NFL, he sure likes to disappear when the lights are bright. That dude's got 1 sack in 4 playoff games, did nothing in all your big losses this year. Now, I know the thing about Micah is you run at him, but you're going to hand that guy $200 million, and I know he's flashy and all this other stuff, but, man, I just wonder it would never happen in a million years, but you're going to bring Dak back. That's what Jerry's going to do. You have to bring back CeeDee Lamb because he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver moving forward for the next 5 to 6 years in his prime.
I want to add a little bit more on that baby flag. I'm going to add like another baby flag, maybe even just let's combine them to a small flag. Micah Parsons is repeatedly now talked about that he wants to play for Dan Quinn. End of story. That's where he wants to play for. If he wants to go after Dan Quinn leaves, if he leaves to a place like Seattle, which is the top landing spot right now, we might not see Micah with the star on his helmet, which he wants to be a Cowboy, right? We saw his emotional stuff after, draft night. He wants to be there. But if he really loves Dan Quinn and that's who he wants to play for, and he don't want to play for the Cowboys, he just won't sign. That's the thing. So again, I want to stack on top of that one with another flag. Let's combine them. That's kind of my issue.
I mean, I think all your legit defenses in the league have a highly paid edge rusher. Obviously, we have one. I guess the Ravens don't really have one, although they've resurrected Jadeveon Clowney this year. But it's just one of those things with Micah, man. I would love to see him show up a little bit more. And the thing about it is, I mean, I know it's hard for him to show up when he's getting put in a chokehold every play. Trust me, Nick Bosa's the same way. But there's just certain players. Aaron Donald carried the Rams to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Every single one of their wins in the NFC came on him sacking the quarterback or, ripping the quarterback's arm out of his socket at the end of the game. He carried them to the Super Bowl.
For sure.
Dominant defensive players pop no matter what scheme is ran at them. And little baby red flag on him and his production in big games.
For sure. Now let's move to the other side of the NFC, who had more of a gradual implosion, like we said. It's really difficult to recall a more rapid fall from grace than what's gone down with the Philadelphia Eagles over the past like 2 months. It's really hard to recall. Okay. From the 10-1 start, the Eagles came undone and they basically, I mean, what, limped, crawled, had half their body chopped off into the wild card, right?
Yeah,
Dropping 5 of
but
the last 6 games.
if you pause that right there, man, let's just take that 10-1 record and realize that it
Mm-hmm.
very easily could have been 6-5.
Yeah.
So they won a lot of close games right there, on an offensive philosophy of Jalen's just going to run around and huck it deep and hope for pass interference and hope for AJ Brown to do great things. Um, I'm sure you had somewhere you were going with that. I apologize for cutting you off,
No,
but
you're good.
Jalen looked amazing last year under Steichen.
Yeah, no,
Gardner
absolutely.
Minshew looked amazing last year under Steichen, but Jalen this year looks like that dude from Oklahoma. He looks like the dude that Nick Saban said, "Peace, you got to go." And I'd be freaking the hell out if I was the Eagles. If you're bringing back Sirianni, who's coming? What top flight offensive coordinator are you bringing in to fix Jalen Hurts when you know Sirianni's, bro? You got the hottest ass seat in the NFL right now, except for maybe McCarthy. You got the hottest, or Tomlin. You got the hottest hot seat. What offensive coordinator is going to sign up to come try to fix that project? I don't know. I mean, if I was the Eagles, I might look to see Jalen Hurts' cap hit is very, very low the next couple of years because they did that cap wizardry stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. That dude might not be the answer.
And I think it's, man, dude, I love it. I really do. Because obviously, again, I'm a Cowboys fan. So I love seeing this implosion. If I'm going to lose, I better see the goddamn Eagles lose too, right? And the next person up is the goddamn Niners. I better see both them lose. Okay. So one down, one to go. But I think it's awesome because I don't like Nick Sirianni at all. So the fact that he goes and after he beats the Chiefs and he goes, screams, Chiefs fans, I don't want to hear nothing. And then goes 2-6 for the next 8 games. Really? You
Yeah,
Chiefs fans, I don't want to hear nothing. And you go 2-6? Bro, that's crazy. And then you get dog walked 32-9 in the wild card against the Bucks. I don't want to hear
yeah,
that.
and let's be honest. The Packers are here to stay. That's the youngest
Oh yeah.
offense in the league right now. Jordan Love's a baller. Aaron Jones is a baller. They got a ton of young pieces.
Yeah.
Maybe it was surprising what happened to the Cowboys, but the Packers are going to be around. The Bucks are not. That team is aging. They don't
Yeah.
belong in the playoffs. Baker's had
They
a
weren't
good
expected to
year,
be in the
I
playoffs.
guess.
Yeah.
But you beat the Eagles. The Eagles can't tackle. They can't.
Can't block.
What the hell? And you guys are down. The game got away from you guys. There was really nothing
Yeah.
you could do. But it's 16-7. Run the fucking football, Sirianni. Like, what are we doing? You're down 7. You're playing
Yep.
like you're down. My phone thinks I'm saying Siri, not Sirianni. You're down 7. Like, DeAndre
Mhm.
Swift has been a revelation for you guys this year. Run the football. Like, to me, I don't know why they're
Yeah.
bringing him back. I think that's outrageous that they're bringing him back. And I think that, the Eagles better be careful because the Giants are a joke. The Eagles are turning into a joke. But I tell you what, you better watch out for Washington with that new owner. They just hired Adam Peters. They're interviewing all the top guys for their head coaching job. The Eagles better watch out. They might find
Yeah.
themselves in the third seed or fourth spot in that division next year.
I think what the most dangerous thing too is Sirianni is he's the player's coach, right? That's the type of coach he is. And then the fact that your team looks unprepared, unmotivated, and uninterested in even playing the game.
Right.
And the fact that the culmination of the entire thing comes back to a tush push, you're guaranteed play, and you fail, you get stuffed at the goal line is something
That was so fitting.
just poetic, right? It's something that had to happen. It just says a lot, right? I mean, they're the only second, I don't know if you realize, second team after a 10-1 start to fail to win 12 games. 1986 New York Jets were the last team to do that. But even the 1986 New York Jets won a playoff game. The Eagles,
without a quarterback
so
injury. Nobody got hurt. I mean, I know
Yep.
AJ was limping around and everything, and Devontae's a stud, by the way. He's a war daddy. He came out, was doing everything he could in that game. But
Yeah.
your quarterback doesn't get hurt, and then Jalen's just like, hey, what do you think about Sirianni? Oh, I haven't heard anything about that. Why would he be? Why do you think you
Yeah.
guys were 10-1 and the 49ers took your soul, exposed you to the rest of the league, and now you guys are in Cancun?
Hmm. Yeah.
I can't
No,
believe they brought
absolutely.
that. I can't believe they brought that dude back. It's mind boggling to me with all the coaching talent that's out there right now that you're running it back with that guy who in 2 of the 3 seasons you've had to strip somebody of play calling duties because they weren't getting the job done. I just
Yep.
who's coming to that job? That's another thing. Sirianni's on the hot seat, so nobody's coming. Who's coming to that job knowing 2 or 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season they might be fired or play calling duties might be stripped from them because things aren't
Yep.
going right?
Yeah, and the question is where do you go from here, right? Especially with the coaching, but not only that, they're currently projected with the 22nd pick in the draft. They have a couple of major free agents, starting
700
linebackers.
free agents, yeah.
Zach Cunningham is going to be a free agent. Jason Kelsey is maybe retiring, probably retiring at this point. Shaq Leonard, who they were acquired through trade late in the season, he is going to be a free agent. Braden Mann, who is their punter, is going to be free agent. DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, both running back 1 and 2, are also going to be free agents. So that's not just it, but that's just the major ones that come to mind.
Well,
There's a lot
and
there.
the rest of the guys that are under contract are old. You
Yeah.
saw their secondary, James Bradbury, the dude they traded for from
Cooked.
Tennessee. Like it's just old. You guys can't
Mm-hmm.
to the Bucks. Like Mike Evans is a stud. I love Mike Evans, but to the Bucks, like you got boat raced by the Bucks, and
Even guys
I'm
who aren't old and are studs, they don't want to play. Like AJ Brown doesn't care anymore, and you delete all of your goddamn Instagram posts about the Eagles. You just don't care. He doesn't care about the Eagles anymore at this point. He's Hurts is he's Jalen Hurts' best friend. He don't even care though at this point. He don't want to play for Sirianni at this point. I would get tired of getting yelled at every single time we're down and act like it's all my goddamn fault. I'm the stud. You're not throwing it to me. Why is it all my fault?
And you know what? I thought about putting a little thumb over my camera here. And when the podcast started and 5 4 3 2 1 we went live, I was going to be wearing a Packers hat. I thought it was going to be pretty funny. But then I was like, you know what? The 49ers play the Packers this week. I'm not doing the podcast with them wearing a Packers hat and then have something catastrophic happen and us lose to them also. I'm not going to do it. So I was thinking about being a little reserved more of my
Right.
takes on this, but I'm like, you know what? Screw that. The Bucks boat raced your ass. That's embarrassing. You should not have a job anymore. And I don't listen. I don't want to see anyone get fired, but he makes like 12 million a year. He'll be fine if he gets fired. I just not the losses. I can't say are surprising because we saw it coming.
Yeah.
But to then run it back with him, and you're going to run it back with Jalen and this old ass defense, and the only thing they got going for them is that their security guard is now famous. That's the only thing Philadelphia has going for them. And the fact that the 76ers might win the NBA championship and only like 500,000 people will watch that because nobody watches the NBA anymore.
Well, outside of the untrue things like Sixers winning the championship, I think you're